You're listening to CX Passport, the show about creating great customer experiences with a dash of travel talk. Each episode, we'll talk with our guest about great CX, travel, and just like the best journeys, explore new directions we never anticipated. I'm your host, Rick Denton. I believe the best meals are served outside and require a passport. Let's get going. I love talking to people across the globe. One of my favorite aspects of hosting CX Passport is the conversation I've had with people from regions and cultures around the world. I try to imagine talking to, let's say, high school age Rick, which was back in the late 80s, early 90s. Yeah, it's been a while. That he would be talking to people across the globe easier than sending a secret note across a classroom in Austin, Texas. That Rick would have thought you were insane. Then tell that Rick that he'd have the chance to talk with Seda Alpkaya from Turkey, now living in the UK, about customer experience while he sits in Texas, USA. He'd probably just hit play on his new order cassette and walk away. But it's true. Today, I get the significant pleasure of talking with Seda Alpkaya today. Seda comes with a wealth of customer experience exposure, both in the corporate world and now as the founder of Voxel Consulting. Her experience is pan-European, stretching from deep Turkish experience to a successful and growing CX practice in the UK. I am super excited to talk with Seda today. Seda, welcome to CX Passport.
Thank you very much for this lovely introduction, Rick. Thank you.
Well deserved, Seda. I've enjoyed getting to know you over the last several months over LinkedIn, and I'm so glad we're finally getting the chance to have this conversation on CX Passport. But let's just start right at the beginning. Let's talk about that geographic range of customer experience. What are some of the similarities and some differences you've seen between the CX approach in Turkey versus the UK?
Rick, I try to just keep a close eye on customer experience developments, both in Turkey, in the UK, also in the global market. So I am acting as a jury or chair of judges in international platforms like Customer Experience Awards, UK Customer Experience Awards, Turkey Customer Experience Awards, and so on. So I have the chance to see different companies, different CX approaches all over the globe. So it's a good thing for me. So the first thing I see when I have the chance to see these companies is the increasing interest in customer experience. That's the first thing I observe in the, not only customer experience, but also in employee experience.
Oh, right. Sure. Yeah.
Exactly. So I can see that from the increasing participation of these global competitions too. For example, from Turkey, there are big companies like Istanbul Grand Airport. Maybe you have heard that.
Yes.
Like Turkish Airlines, Getir, a big food delivery company now expanding to the globe, to US as well. So big like Turkcell also. These companies are really delivering outstanding results in terms of customer experience. What they focus on is, they focus on accessibility, sustainability, human-centric customer experience design. So these companies kind of have purpose. So the customers understand that too. Yeah. These are good examples from Turkey that I encountered during these competitions also. There are also very, very strong companies from the UK too, like, for example, Octopus Energy. Maybe you have heard of it.
Yes.
Swish Fiber, exactly. So John Lewis, old companies like Waitrose, like Sainsbury's, who have been delivering good customer experiences for many, many years. Also, the second thing that I see is that the investments are growing in the area. For example, we can see a lot of customer experience officers, chief customer officers generating in companies. Exactly. The customer experience teams are growing. Also in Turkey, in some of the universities, customer experience have started to be taught as a lesson. Can you believe that? So the area is enlarging, the area is growing as well.
Yeah.
And a difference that I observe when I just look at Turkish markets and UK market is that the sense of urgency of the projects. In Turkey, it's maybe because of the geography that we are living in, Turkey, the people are very agile. They like very rapid solutions. For example, when you have a project, next day, they wait you to deliver some results of that project, but that is not the same in the UK. I think UK customers understand that CX is a transformative process. It's not something that you start and then you start to deliver results. So
that does really that actually kind of surprises me. I would not have thought it would be that way. I would have thought that maybe, with a more a CX discipline that may have been around for longer or those sorts of things, there might be more of that nimbleness in the UK. It's really interesting to hear you say that in Turkey, it is that, hey, look, let's come up with an idea, then boom, let's get that idea out the next day,
Exactly.
test and iterate, which is what a lot of us aspire to do. I know we talk about agile, right? It's an overused word, but we all aspire to do that and create those customer facing solutions so quickly. It's fascinating to hear that that's taking place there for you there in Turkey.
Exactly.
I'm imagining, you mentioned this as you were describing some of that. You talked about design thinking, and I've got to imagine that elements of that speed that you're talking about in Turkey, but also how it's applied anywhere across the globe, that design thinking comes to bear, right? And I know you go deep in that, helping advance customer experience and employee experience. So can you help me understand how design thinking discipline really works in the experience space?
Sure. So let me just start with what design thinking is first.
Great.
The definition that I like most is that design thinking is a creative problem solving technique.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the thing that it focuses on is iteration, collaboration, and also human centricity. It always puts human in the center. It has some phases. It has five phases, starting from empathize and then continuing with define, ideate, prototype, and test. These are the 5 phases. And during all those 5 phases, which are all iterative, you always need to, challenge your assumptions. You never think that your assumption is right. You always go back. If you are not right about something, you go back to, for example, the second step and talk with your customers again in order to understand the core, the root cause, or everything. You learn everything from your customer, from the human. And I think what I see during all those years is design thinking really unlocks the creativity in people because of the tools and approaches that it uses. So when I think about customer experience or employee experience, I can say that I cannot separate them from each other, because in customer experience space, in employee experience space, what we are talking about is put the human in the center, put your customer at the center.
Excellent.
Try to understand the thing, the solution. Try to learn from them. So I think it is not easy to separate those. And also, another thing is that design thinking tools, when you use design thinking tools and techniques in customer experience area, you see that you flourish more ideas than you will do by yourself. So you just gather teams from different disciplines, you think about solutions, you create solutions, and it is always more, it's richer. It's richer.
Well, and that
design thinking
that unlocks a little bit of my understanding as well, in that, design thinking, and yes, there's a principle, there's a design, there's an approach to it as well. But the fact that it is a way to amplify the creativity so that you can use that to work on customer experience. You could use it to work on designing a particular piece of manufacturing material.
Exactly.
It's a way of thinking, and the collaboration element that you alluded to as well. I know that when I've been a part of companies or consulting at companies that really have that mindset, it is amazing how much quicker the creative ideas get unlocked as opposed to being stuck in the ways of the past. So using that, though, let's get super, super tactical. I would love to know, like, if somebody's listening to this and they're like, okay, great, I've heard design thinking. It's everybody's talked about it for years now. It's old hat, but it's not. What are some of the tool sets a person or a company can use to advance their design thinking approach? How do you help equip people to become more skilled at design thinking?
Okay. So now here, what I have to say is that design thinking is not a magic formula, because the companies that we are working with, sometimes they expect very, very quick results, because they think that they get some trainings, then they, start to use design thinking tools and techniques, and immediately after that, they will find innovations. But this is not something like that.
Right.
We always say that this is a mindset shift, so you need to be patient. So there are lots of tools and techniques that we use in design thinking, and how we do that, how we teach these, or how we try to help other companies using these tools and techniques, is through design thinking workshops, innovation workshops, sometimes crash courses, 2 days, 3 days, that we where we work with the companies together. But before just doing those kind of workshops, we just try to understand the maturity of the company, the people, the capabilities of the
Okay.
people that we are going to work with, because the tools and techniques differ. There are more than 100 tools that design thinking uses, just affinity maps, customer journey maps, or ecosystem maps, feature canvases, and you need to use the ones that just fits your customers' needs. So in order to understand that, you need to see the maturity. For more mature companies, we use other, set of tools, or for the beginners, we use other set of tools. So how we do is that tell them what design thinking is, introduce them the tool sets that they can use, and then just we let them proceed from there.
When you say, okay, that's interesting. When you say we let them proceed from there, you've worked with a lot of companies. Are at that stage? So we've introduced this, maybe we've had a workshop. Do you find that companies quickly, absorb it and they're off to the races? They're running with this idea, or is there some facilitation that you need to do from an ongoing perspective to help them, make that mindset shift? Because I know you're right. It's not just tools and techniques. It's a mindset shift. So when you've done this initial work, what do you see as kind of the natural evolution then from a company, from the initial introduction to what's next?
So what we try to do while we are just making these kind of trainings with the companies is that we do not make a 3 days training and stop from there. Right. It has a roadmap. We start with understanding the needs of the company that we are going to work with. Then we define the use cases, what we will work during the workshops, during the crash course or whatsoever. And then we give them some projects from their learnings that they should be applying what they learned from 2 days, 3 days that they spent with us. And then we give them some projects to proceed from there. It is like sometimes two month sprints it may be, or sometimes we give them only a month, and then we make them they present it to their management teams, and there is kind of a pitching there. But they have to walk through the steps that we walk them through during those stages, and then after that they make that management presentation. Some ideas sometimes are selected and they really they become tangible after that, and then or some companies see that this turns out to be something tangible, then they decide to proceed from there. And we also tell them the tools and tips. There are a lot of tools free of charge that you can find on net. The things, for example, we mostly use is IDEOS toolset, the design kits, for example. This is designthinking.net tools. These are very simple, easy to use tools. Everybody can use. So we introduce them with those tools. We make them do some practices, and then they make pitchings for their management teams. And then from there, if they see the tangible outcomes of the process, it becomes like a thing for them. But also for some companies, the companies which are a bit impatient, who wants to get results immediately, who doesn't, for example, who stick to their way of thinking, or doesn't want to change, or doesn't want to embrace a new way of doing, it doesn't work. We saw that too.
No, that doesn't surprise me, right? That there's going to be some that take that reverse turn there. But what I like about what you said there is this idea of, okay, we've equipped you to understand it is, but now you do it. You present to your leadership, not we, the Vauxhall Consulting, who's guided you through this, but rather you. And it's sort of similar when you teach somebody a concept, and then one of the best ways to know if they've learned it is ask them to teach someone else, and using that downstream presentation makes a lot of sense. So I want to pivot. I always do pivot around this time. I get that itch to talk about travel. And I know you're from a country that's on a bucket list for many of us, right? I'm actually really excited that Turkish Airways is going to have a nonstop flight from my home airport starting in 2022. So hopefully I'll be seeing Turkey at some point. But I know that recently you got back from Albania. And that's not a name or a country that I speak of very often or hear very often. So it just sounds so incredibly exotic to me, sitting here in Texas, USA, right? So tell me about that trip to Albania.
Yeah, it was kind of a compulsory trip, by the way. In summer, we came to Turkey to see family and friends, but Turkey was one of the red list countries of UK. So we knew that our coming back would not be so easy.
Right.
So in order to get back to the UK after Turkey, we went to Albania. We spent 10 days there. But even though it was a compulsory trip, it turned out to be a very exotic one for us because we really loved the country. It was like a time travel for us back to 19th. It's a Balkan country, it has a lot of Mediterranean impacts on it,
Mhm.
So it is just on the other side of Italy. So it has a lot of impacts from Italy too. So
Yeah.
the seafood, the sea, the people, value for money. We really didn't want to leave the country after 10 days. It was really nice. We really loved it. And it was like the 90s sea coast of Turkey. I was like returning back to my childhood,
Aw,
so I
aw.
didn't want to leave. Exactly. It was really good. I liked it. I loved it.
What a brilliant trip, Seda. I'd love to spend so much more time talking about it. Who knows? Maybe I'm going to just sneak in more Albania talk here at the end. But right now, I want to take us into the first class lounge. When you've had a compulsory trip, no matter how delightful it is, sometimes it's nice to just take a little break in the first class lounge. So join me here. Let's move quickly and we'll have a little bit of fun. What is a dream travel location from your past?
It was London. So the
Interesting.
place
Where you live now today.
exactly where I live. So dream big, big. I think I believe in the strength of dreaming big. So in all my vacations, I used to go to London because it's really my love city. So now I started to live there. So I wouldn't say any city more other than London. Istanbul and London, maybe.
Oh, you can't count your home city. No, we're not going to allow that.
Okay.
Although here you
Okay,
just
so
counted your new home city. But yes, I love London. I absolutely, I think I find something different every time I go there. So it can be a dream travel location from the past. And yet the next time I go, I'm going to experience something totally different. So no, Sid, I'm not going to allow you to say London on this answer, but what's a dream travel location you've not been to yet? Somewhere you want to go?
Cuba. Yeah.
Tell me why. It fascinates me, 90 miles from the US, and yet I can't go. Tell me why
Yeah.
you want to go to Cuba.
I think the colors, Rick. The
Yeah.
colors I see there, the big cigars that they have, the women making the cigars. I would love to see that culture. I really want to go there.
I know that I want to go there. I know that obviously as a US citizen, there are complications for me to do so. And I'm going to extract the political element from this. I would just love to experience the culture, to what you're saying, the food, the colors, the people, the vibrancy that I believe is there. I'm jealous of my Canadian friends when I've talked to my Canadian friends and they've had just returned from a Cuba trip. So hopefully you'll get to Cuba someday.
Thank you.
I
Hopefully.
spoke of food when it comes to Cuba, and I love the Cuban food that I have access to. But what for you what's a favorite thing for you to eat?
Seafood, I love. Seafood.
Seafood.
Grilled fish, I love. I can find it in Turkey, in Istanbul also, but in the
Yeah.
UK, it's not, you have fish and chips. I love grilled fish. I want grilled fish.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say that fish and chips is definitely not grilled fish. It is about the exact
No,
opposite of that.
not
I've
at all.
had some pretty greasy, although I've had some really good fish and chips,
Yeah,
but a little
yeah.
greasy. But yes, the grilled fish, nice. So on the opposite side, what is a thing your parents forced you to eat, but you hated as a kid?
It is something that I still hate, I guess. It's okra. Okra.
Okra.
Yeah. My father loves it. I hate it. I even cannot see it.
Say
The thing, I, I
I,
don't like to see it at all.
say,
The
you're
thing inside
hurting
it.
my heart, Seda.
You love it?
So one of my favorite food items is fried okra. It's a very southern US type food. So imagine the southern
Really?
part of the United States where you've got good fried okra, you've got all sorts of food. It's not healthy, but I've had okra gumbo. I love okra. So you're hurting my heart.
I have never heard of fried okra, by the way.
Okay.
Here we do it, we don't fry it. Maybe I love it. I don't know. But
Okay.
okra,
Well, you know how, I mean, just about anything fried is good anyway. So yes, when you
right.
come over to the US and if we happen to be in the same place, I will make sure now, if we're in a place that does fry okra, I will get you some good fried okra and we're going to change your mind about that. But I understand it can be an unapproachable item for a kid. Slimy, the seeds, all of that.
No, still for me.
What is one travel item you will not leave home without?
It's my toothbrush. It's always in my bag. Not only in travel, I can never leave my toothbrush. It is like my teddy bear.
Oh my gosh, I'm laughing about that, Seda. That's awesome. So your tooth bear, your tooth bear. Oh my gosh, look, listen to what I just said. Your tooth bear, your teddy bear, and your toothbrush combined. I'm not going to edit that out. We're going to keep tooth bear in there. So let's go. I've enjoyed the visit in the first class lounge, but I really want to go back to more talking about design thinking because I think you've got so much insight there, especially because it has been around for a while. It's not this new concept. We're not talking about the metaverse here, right? How does design thinking though help companies who are stuck in their ways? So I can't seem to change. How can I use design thinking to get me unstuck?
Yeah. So as we talked about, Rick, design thinking is something that fosters creativity.
Yeah.
It increases the creative potential in the people. So instead of making decisions just relying on the data that you have in your hands or your instincts, you understand the customer better. So you design the right product, services, or whatever you are designing for them with the creativity that it unlocks in you. So I think what I would say is that the creativity part. So what I think traditional companies lose in time is this. They lose creativity and they lose also the collaboration side because the silos start to grow bigger in the company, so different teams do not find chances to come together to just ideate, to make ideation sessions. So I think creative thinking and collaboration diminishes in traditional companies, and what design thinking does is to foster these two in the companies. So I don't know if you know this, when you try a circle, when you just draw a circle around the insects, they think that it is a trap. They cannot go out of the circle.
Oh,
So
interesting.
it is what I sometimes think is that this is something similar for traditional companies because they are so stuck in their way of thinking, in their organization charts and everything. They forget that they can be creative. They can change the way that they are working. So I think these two things are what design thinking will bring to big companies, to the companies that are stuck in their just way of doing. Also, but to emphasize here, design thinking sure is not something limitless. It also has its own limits.
Oh,
You on the creativity part, you at first diverge into many ideas. You come together with different teams, with different disciplines, and there in the ideation sessions, you just think that sky is the limit. You can just
right.
push up all kind of ideas, but then you need to converge your ideas because you cannot prototype or you cannot launch all the ideas that you do. So it has two phases, starting with diverging ideations, a lot of ideas, but then you converge your ideas to find the things that the people want, but that are also financially and
Yeah,
also technologically feasible. You need to find that way. So
that's true.
design thinking shows that too.
Yeah, that's very true, right? You can come up with something that, well, it's a great idea, but it would cost us, $10 billion to execute and get a return of 100,000. So yeah, I can see that there'd be some limits there. The story of the insect and drawing the circle around them, that's interesting to me, and it does remind me. I think we've all been told, think about when we were kids and how creative we might have been as kids, and then over time, either school structures or peer pressure or whatever it is has, for many of us, constrained our creativity. And it feels like what you're describing is design thinking helps sort of re-unlock that creativity that's in all of us originally as in our childhood, and then it brings it back. It gives a structure to those of us that don't feel the most creative as adults, and provides a way to do that. Now,
Yeah.
this is coming to mind a little bit because we're talking about design thinking, and I know it's been around, so to call it trendy isn't really the right term anymore, but it's a phrase, it's a trend, it's a thing. And I know a lot of companies sometimes might say that they're doing something that's trendy, that's cool. Hey, we do agile, we do design thinking, but they're really doing something else. So I'm kind of curious, how is design thinking different than just regular old brainstorming?
Yeah, it's really a very good question. And also coming back to what you said, the thing that you said about, unlocking the creativity of
Yeah.
our childhood is what all design thinkers talk about,
Oh, okay.
Exactly. You
Hey,
just
I've got a new
pointed
career.
it
All
out.
right.
Exactly. We always talk about that. For example, David Kelly, he always says that you have to unlock the creativity of your childhood. You need to
I
go
see.
back there. exactly. So I appreciate that. I appreciate you for
Happy to
saying that.
deliver, even though it was
Thank you.
unintended, but
It was
glad it's there.
it was very nice. And yes, by the way, coming back to your question, design thinking is really something trendy, something popular these days. Everybody is talking about, everybody is getting trainings on design thinking and so on. But I believe is that it is not something temporary. Uh, Product design, by the way, dates back to mid 80s. So it is product
Yeah,
design part is not something new, but the
right.
methodology of design thinking is new. It's like 20 or so years of its widespread adoption. But why I believe it is not temporary is that because of its focus on concentrating on the human, you know,
Ah,
that understanding the human. There are a lot of process improvement methodologies, like you said, that there is agile, there is Six Sigma, there is lean. But the difference of design thinking when you compare it with these other process improvement methods is the importance it puts in understanding the human. The
I
first part
see.
to
Yeah.
exactly. You need to understand the human. You need to define the problem right, and then you find your ways to solve it. So this is why I think design thinking will never be temporary, and it will always stay with us. And you can see big companies all around the world, like for example Netflix, like Amazon, Apple, Starbucks, Getir from Turkey. There are a lot of companies that are using design thinking approach in their customer experiences, employee experiences for
Yeah.
these, because they see that, by focusing on the needs, by focusing on their customers, employees, they can deliver product services faster, better for
Yeah.
their customers. So this is, I think, why it will stick.
I like that. And that certainly crystallizes it for me, in that using the human centric element of it is what makes it design thinking versus just, hey, let's just throw some post-its on the wall. And hey, sometimes regular brainstorming is fine, but how this approach of design thinking is really taking the human and put them in the center.
Exactly. Coming back to your question, sorry, the brainstorming part, because I forgot to just answer that part. There are a lot of tools and techniques, as I said, that design thinking uses in its 5 phases. And brainstorming is one of the tools that it uses.
I see.
It uses
Okay.
brainwriting,
Yeah.
brainstorming, as I said, affinity mapping, and all kinds of tools. It's only a tool that design thinking uses because it's also, makes you creative.
Ah, okay. So it's a tool
It's
inside
a
of the
tool,
the the the
exactly,
mindset.
that
I
it
see. Okay,
uses.
that makes sense. Okay, so if you were just brainstorming, you haven't gone all the way to design thing. Makes sense. Man, Seda, what I was starting to say is we're almost out of time, but there's something I really want to ask you here as we're coming close to the end of time. But we talked about techniques, we talked about tactics, but a lot of design thinking is simply mindset. And so you've worked with a lot of companies. How do you know if they're culturally ready, if they've got the right mindset to get into a design thinking mode?
Uh, I just experienced some companies where design thinking doesn't work.
Oh,
Let me
okay.
start from
I
there.
like that. Let's go the other way. I like this.
Exactly. For example, I saw that design thinking approach doesn't work in companies where mistakes are not tolerated.
Ah, yeah.
Mistakes are punished,
Right.
or companies that are very impatient, who want to get the results immediately, because these kind of companies think that talking with the customer, spending time on the emphasize phase, which is the most important part, is kind of, you know, time spent for nothing. So they
I
don't believe
see.
that, but
Yeah.
design thinking believes it. So also companies who stick to their current way of thinking, who doesn't want to change. These kind of companies, even though they try design thinking, they always come back to their traditional solutions. They cannot use it. So that is what I experience from the companies that I am working with. It doesn't work. But when the company is ready to embrace, when the company uh, embraces the idea that it needs to change, then they are open to different ideas, to different way of thinking. Also, not only the manager, the mid-level managers also need to be believing in this too.
Mhm.
So when there is a kind of a change movement in the company, or they're okay with changing, then a design thinking approach fits very well there because they are open. They are open. In other kind of companies, we see, for example, in ideation workshops, they say, we tried this, but didn't work.
Oh,
No, we say that this is cross. You cannot say this. It may, many years ago, maybe it was a failure, but now it may work because we are working on something different. So those kind of, sticking on ideas, not wanting to change, doesn't work in design thinking. So the companies who are ready for that will be successful.
That makes so much sense to me. So if I can kind of crystallize what I heard you, the ones that are not going to succeed are the ones that have said, one, you can't make any mistakes, no mistakes, you can't do it. So, well, then that doesn't work for design thinking. And there's sort of almost not a crisis moment, but that willingness to accept that whatever is current needs to change, and that desire to change is the seed that is planted to allow a company to truly have that design thinking mindset, that they are open to that sense of change. Seda, thank you for opening my eyes to design thinking and how it applies to customer experience and employee experience. It is a term that is thrown about so widely, but it helps to talk to someone like you who really knows it, is steeped in it, and can help really align that to customer experience. I also really enjoyed hearing about Albania and some of the other travels that you've got. It's always fun talking with you, Seda. I'm glad that we had this opportunity to put it on tape, if you will, and allow listeners to hear the great wisdom that you have to share. I've enjoyed it, Seda. I wish you the best of your time here in Turkey. I wish you safe travels when it is time to return back to the UK, and that everything goes well. Thank you for being on CX Passport today. I've enjoyed it thoroughly.
Thank you very much, Rick, for the opportunity. It was very nice talking with you.
Thanks for joining us this week on CX Passport. Make sure to visit our website, cxpassport.com, where you can hit subscribe so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, you can check out the rest of the EX for CX website. If you're looking to get real about customer experience, EX for CX is available to help you increase revenue by starting to listen to your customers and create great experiences for every customer, every time. Thanks for listening to CX Passport, and be sure to tune in for our next episode. Until next time, I'm Rick Denton, and I believe the best meals are served outside and require a passport.